Sometimes it's difficult to get to the truth of who we really are. Childhood traumas may have made us afraid and silenced us from wanting or being able to speak what's really in our hearts. This was the case for my guest, Becky Norwood. But deep down, she realized there had to be another way. She was able to find herself and ultimately her mission through what I consider to be an unusual method: the power of story. As author of the best selling book, The Woman I Love, Becky began her journey of growth and healing, which led her to create her own publishing company, where she now helps others find their voices through their stories. And she's featured in the book, Amazing Woman, It's Your Time to Emerge. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Becky.
Thank you. It's a delight to be here.
Oh, thank you. Becky, tell me, why do you believe telling our stories is a gateway for growth?
I think that there's so many of us, especially, I think everyone has had something that shakes them to the core. And whether that happens when we're very, very young, like it did for me, or whether it's something in adulthood where there's something that happens, and whether it's a health issue, doesn't matter what kind of an issue it is. It's sometimes we get immersed in the story of it all, and we don't voice the story. We just live it. We live what happened to us, and it comes down to a point where maybe we're not living the kind of life that we should be living, that we could be living, and we're not serving in the world in the way that would help, that we're here for. We're here to serve. We're here to shine the light. We're here to do so many things for the positive. But if we're immersed in a story that has rocked our world, we can't do that. And my discovery has been that sitting down and putting pen to paper to really put into perspective the things that have happened in our lives and where we are at the time, and also it just transforms. It's just a really huge transformation. But I also feel that storytelling is a part and parcel of the core of humanity, because in that core of humanity, storytelling has been here since the beginning of time. And what I worry about is that people are losing that gift of storytelling because of all the modern technology that we have. Do we take the time to talk, and do we take the time to share the stories of what made us us and the journey that we've been on?
So, what if you feel that you can't tell your story? You feel like you don't know how to write, you don't really know how to speak very well. How do you begin?
That's very common. My voice was silenced for a very long time. And as a child, I heard constantly I was stupid, I was ugly, and I'd never make it in the world. And, when you grow into adulthood, having heard that for a very long time, you believe it. That's how you live. And it's in that journey to discover something far more than that inner calling that keeps saying, there is something more, we've got to figure it out. And and I think life brings us many things that help us to start realizing, like the lights start coming on, you know. And what's interesting is, in speaking with many women, there's so many. The first things that out of our mouths are, "Who would want to hear my story? Why would anybody want to hear my story?" And yet, who are you not to share your story? Because if you could transform the life of just one person because of the power of your story, is it worth it? Absolutely. But typically we reach far more than that when we share our stories.
Hmm. Well, your own story is a powerful and quite honestly a sad one. Uh, What led you to believe that your story was worth sharing?
It was a lot of an inner journey, but also I was surrounding myself with people that were talking about, you know, who are you and what are you about, and really helping us, even things like the dreams and things like the power of your thoughts, all these things. As I started exposing myself more to that, I realized that there was great healing in putting pen to paper and really writing the story of my life. And then it developed from there that I began to understand the full power. Because how many of us have heard, we get to know, like you and I were talking, we haven't known each other very long, but I don't know much of your story other than what was written in this beautiful book that we both were part of on Emerge. Amazing Woman, It's Your Time to Emerge. But we really don't know each other too well till you start to share the story of what got you to where you are today. And then you start to understand. I have one of my authors, the name of her book is called Breaking to Be Me. And she had answered a challenge and jumped off the side of a cliff just thinking, oh, yeah, I'll be fine. I'm young. Well, she broke her back. And she was in such constant pain for such a very long time. And the doctors just said, it's all in your head. There's nothing we can do. But she was living on pain medication. And she finally found a doctor that worked with her to go deeper into the core issues of what was behind that pain. And now she lives a pain-free life and teaches others what she learned. And it's just amazing what she does. But until you understood her story, her backstory, you did not know what led her to the work that she's doing today. And look at you, with what you're teaching about dreams. There was something that led you to listening to this calling that you had. And it had to be a series of things that had gone on in your life that brought you to that point where you wanted to listen to dreams.
Yeah, this is so true. It's actually true. When you said that you got healing from telling your story, what exactly do you mean by that?
I actually wrote a book and published it, and it was released out to the world. And I was nervous because I was very authentic, very raw, very vulnerable in describing my story. But there was something magical that happened from it, not only in the writing, because in the writing, you start to get a whole different perspective when you have to put pen to paper and get those juices going to be able to even write a book like that. But then it was published, it became a #1 international bestseller. And then people started reaching out to me because in the book, I put my social media, I had a Facebook group and I was on different social medias. And people would reach out and say, thank you for having the courage to write a book like that, to share your story, to be authentic and vulnerable and show us a different way. And even men reached out and said, now I understand for the first time, I understand my mom, or I understand my wife. And that, that in itself, when you know you can make a difference, when you realize what that does, it's almost like it sets you free. It's just pretty amazing.
It is. And the other part of it is that you realize that you're not alone, that there is a community out there.
That was huge. Yeah. Because we always think we are alone, and we are not alone.
This is so true. Well, as a result of this journey, you did found your own publishing company. And you say that one of your aims is to make authors or make writers authorpreneurs. Define that word for me.
Well, most of us will publish a book, and today's world is pretty amazing because of the tools and resources, just even publishing, period. Years ago, you would have to go through the chances of actually getting a book published in the traditional sense was quite a feat. And if you didn't have the connections, if you didn't really know how to go about doing that, it wasn't going to happen. Now we have self-publishing, we have books are being published, hundreds of books are being published every day. And I always teach my authors to treat their book like it's a business. And I kind of combine the word entrepreneur with authorpreneur. It's so that, to look at it I'm sure most people have other resources and they're running a business or they're employed otherwise. But if they don't use this book as a tool to share their message, and use the resources that we now have available to us, like your show, like other things, many other things that we have, then your book can get lost in the cobwebs of cyberspace. Nobody's going to know it's there unless you do something to make sure that other people know it's there. And so that's why I say become an entrepreneur is treat the book like it's a part of your business or a tool for business growth. Get your message out there and stand on your story, not in your story, and grow from it and help others to grow. And that's kind of that's just what I've been able to develop, because when I published that first book, I had women reaching out to me on a continual basis. Thank you for sharing. And how do I start sharing my story? And so I did two other books right after that book, one each year, that was called We Choose to Thrive. And many of the women in those books, there was 50 women in the between the two books. And many of them were telling their story for the first time in a chapter of it. And from that very act of sharing the story, and we did Facebook Lives on launch day, and we did all kinds of stuff with the tools we had available then. And those videos were getting shared out to 500, 600, 700 other people. And the comments that were coming from that. But I've been able to have the blessed privilege, and I'm still working with some of them that are just now, many years later, saying, I'm ready to share my story. I've got my story written, and I'm ready to stand up in the world and share it. But so many of the women in those two books have gone on to do amazing things. They're now coaches, and they've got nonprofit organizations started. They've got all kinds of things to further their cause of what kept them held down for so long. But it was all because they were willing to stand up and share.
Mm. Well, so far you've been talking about people who telling their stories, people who have had traumas or have had misfortunes in their lives. What about the person who kind of feels like there is nothing bad in their life? What about their story? Is that also worth
Oh my
sharing?
goodness, so important, because they've had a wealth of goodness that has been in their life, and they've learned even from the good that has transpired. But you can't keep your story to yourself. You got to talk. There's something that they're an expert in. There's something that they're very good at, and it's time to share. What our world needs more than anything else is for those of us that have the heart to do so, is to stand up and lead in all the ways that we can, because we have the tool sets available. Look at what we're doing on Zoom right now. What we have, the tools, the amazing technology that we're able to use to share and to lead and to step into our greatness and help others to do the same.
How can people find out more about you and your services?
Well, I'm all over social media. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, all of them. My website is spotlightpublishing.pro. And I do have a PDF download. I think it's called spotlightpublishing.pro/4 pillars. I think that's what it's called. And that's kind of goes into more depth about the role of the power of story and the 4 pillars of a story well told.
We've been speaking with story advocate, the story whisperer, Becky Norwood.